YouTube, this is Chelsea the Destroyer. Today we're going to learn about cheese. We're going to watch Modern Marvels, Cheese, Glorious, Gooey History. If you like my content, you want to help me grow, etc., I appreciate you. Please do algorithmic interactions such as like, comment, subscribing, etc. Grab your snackies, grab your bubbies, and let's get to watching and learn about cheese. I hope you're not lactose intolerant. Yeah, cheese from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends was very frustrating to watch.
Take some milk. Add a little bacteria.
I had goat cheese for the first fucking time over Christmas. I don't know what kind. It was soft, but it was good. It went really well with the crackers I was eating it on. And that's all I know because I didn't buy it. So I have no idea what other kind of cheese it was. Someone was like, what kind of cheese was it? I was like, I don't know. Fucking goat cheese. It's bought at Bougie Publix. I don't know.
Some mold. Maybe a few mites.
No!
Cheese is just a means of a controlled spoilage.
And you get a delicacy that people can't get enough of. From pasture to pizza. From Roquefort to Velveeta. No matter how you slice it.
Speaking of cheese, I'm eating Cheetos, Cheetos balls, minis. They're so good.
Or spray it. It's one of humankind's most complex and cherished foods.
Yeah,
now,
I love cheese.
Cheese on Modern Marvels.
Cheese me!
The trucks begin arriving before dawn. Gleaming steel tankers, each one hauling 6,000 gallons, roll into the offloading bays. It is a refinery of sorts. But the commodity here isn't oil or natural gas. It's milk. This is the Alto Dairy in Waupun, Wisconsin.
Typical day, there's about 3.5 million pounds of milk that come into the plant.
Jeez.
So there's about 70 truckloads.
The Alto Dairy takes those 3.5 million pounds of milk and begins turning them into 400,000 pounds of cheese.
Hell yeah.
Every day. 90% of the milk produced in Wisconsin.
I wonder if this place is going to explain to me why they add the additive colors to cheese. Like yellow. Why do you add yellow to cheese? There used to be a legitimate reason. Now I think we just do it for aesthetics because people got used to it. But like, I want to know why.
Goes into cheese. And fully 10% of Wisconsin's cheese gets made here at Alto, the largest cheese plant east of the Mississippi. From giant factories to small farms, making cheese is an
smack
art,
that cheese.
a science, and a craft. It's also a relationship between land, animal, and technique.
The human being is just another one of the 4, 5, or 6 factors that are integral to the science.
Without people, there would be no
cheese
cheese. That's not natural.
At the
Cheese
Alto
ain't natural.
Dairy, as with any cheese factory, good cheese begins with a pure, consistent milk supply.
That's such a
First
big
he does
thing.
When the truck pulls in, is the intake guy opens up the top cover and gets a sample of the milk out. It's checked for antibiotics. Once the lab clears it, they hook the hose on and they start to unload the truck.
The dairy pumps the milk into giant holding silos. When a batch of cheese begins, the milk heads to the pasteurizer, where it's quickly heated to about 162 degrees Fahrenheit, killing any bacteria.
All right.
Then it's on to the cheese-making vat. Ironically, the next and most crucial step in making any cheese, from a creamy fresh cheese to an aged Parmesan, is adding bacteria, the so-called good bacteria known as the starter culture.
We have to put good bacteria back in, and that's the starter culture we just dumped in. And what that starter does is the bacteria start to eat the lactose, or the milk sugars.
As the bacteria, aided by moderate heat and agitation, consume the sugars and ferment them into lactic acid, they lower the pH balance of the milk. This will eventually give the cheese its acidic, tangy flavor. The pH drop also prepares the milk proteins to coagulate.
I like sharp and extra sharp cheddar from Tillamook. The white one. I don't like it when it's yellow.
This particular batch of milk is destined to become cheddar. So
Deep
before the
color.
milk is coagulated, the cheesemakers add a vegetable dye called annatto to give the cheddar its trademark orange color.
Okay, but why?
The actual coagulation is made possible by a miraculous enzyme known as rennet. Although today's cheesemakers often use rennet synthesized from vegetable sources, it was originally taken from the stomach lining of ruminant animals,
No.
such as cows and sheep.
I don't know if I like that.
In just 30 minutes, a mere drizzle of rennet turns this giant vat of milk into a yogurt-like mass.
Okay.
In 55,000 pounds of milk, we're using about 70 ounces of rennet. Doesn't take much.
Automatic knives then carefully cut through the solid portion, known as curd, and expel the liquid, known as whey.
Curds and whey.
This is another universal aspect of cheese making, at dairies large and small. The size of the curds will determine the texture and moisture content of the cheese. The finer the curd size, the more whey that's expelled. Cheddar is cut very fine, which will lead to a dry, firm cheese.
We'll then wash the curd, which lowers the temperature so the bacteria will slow down, plus remove some of their food source by washing out some lactose. And then we will salt the cheese, and the salt again is a way to not only flavor it, to help give it the flavor, but it helps to control the bacteria.
The curd is piped to the cheese press area, where it will fill one of these forms, known in the trade.
I don't know. Because, like, sometimes, like, plant workers make a lot of money because there's, like, a lot of plant work is, like, kind of labor intensive or dangerous, depending on what it is. But then sometimes they don't. So I have no idea.
As a 640, since it will form a 640-pound block of cheese.
Yo.
Box is then pushed into the drainer press.
I want to take a spoon to that. Look at it. Don't you want to, like, take a scoop? You want to take a scoop of that?
And it's allowed to stand for 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes of stand time,
Kiss.
now the drainer press is lowered. The entire press will then tip down for whey drainage. Each individual box is pressed for about 8 minutes with 55 pounds of PSI.
This hydraulically powered machine is an industrial version of the cheese press, the simple tool used by cheesemakers for thousands of years to shape the curd and press out whey. The forms are further pressurized in a vacuum chamber. Over time, the curd pieces fuse into what we'll recognize as cheddar cheese.
Why do you make it
Inside
yellow?
the cheese, the starter bacteria continue to break the milk sugars into tangy lactic acid and proteins into sharply flavored volatile compounds, gradually imparting flavor to the cheese.
And that's what the process of this controlled spoilage of making cheese is all about. Having those molecules break down into simpler and simpler molecules so that the cheese can take life.
Most of the aging will have to take place away from Alto Dairy, which ripens the cheddars in cold storage for only 10 days before moving the giant blocks out the door to its wholesale customers. And so goes this high-volume, high-tech version of a classic
I just want to eat that part. Like this part before they press it. Like, I just want to taste that.
English farmhouse cheese.
This is an English farmhouse cheddar. This is a New York cheddar. All cheddar really is white. All
Yeah.
cheese really starts out white.
Right?
And keep in mind,
So why you keep
cheddar
coloring it?
was a town in England, right? Our tradition of making cheese a great deal comes from the English, and that's why we make a lot of cheddar
Cabot is also good.
here in the United States. As a matter of fact,
Hello,
we
Mo-
make more cheese here in the United States than
Coloring has been added to cheddar cheese for centuries to regulate color variations in milk that can come from seasonal changes in the cow diet. Okay. I don't like that, though. Quite adding color additives. That's fine.
in any other country.
Which is saying something because the world makes a lot of cheese.
Yeah, we do.
From Munster to mozzarella, ricotta to Roquefort, The world's cheesemakers produce 20 million tons of the stuff in a year.
Can I be honest with you? I'm not a fan of fresh mozzarella. It doesn't really taste like anything to me. Corn is colored yellow? I didn't know that. Also, I don't normally eat corn. I eat popcorn, I eat hominy. And I do not eat the yellow hominy. I only eat the white hominy. I don't know why. The yellow hominy tastes different. Don't like it.
More than all the world's tobacco, coffee beans, tea leaves, and cocoa beans combined. But cheese cannot be measured in volume alone. It's an enduring obsession, a seductive pleasure. Whether it's a pungent slice of rind d'amour.
Also, they just showed fondue. I hate the concept of fondue. Hey, here's a bunch of stuff. Dip it in cheese and eat it. Could I just have the cheese? I mean, granted, I do eat nachos, so that's a thing. But like nachos and cheese only. Like I don't put like peppers and shit in my nachos. Or like meat. Ugh. Like just give me like. Damn, now I want nachos. But like just give me like the cheese and the chips. You know?
Or a bite of a cheeseburger.
Don't
As a
put cheese
portable,
on my burgers.
protein-filled food, it's also a key element in the story of human survival.
Hell yeah, it is.
We can authenticate that there was cheese making going on in the Basque Country, 3000 BC, and certainly in the area that we know now as Turkey and Iran, Syria.
Nice.
Probably thousands of years before the Basque Country. But the most concrete example that we have is that residue that archaeologists found in an earthenware pot in what we know now as Egypt in 2300 BC. Somewhere between 2300 BC and 3000 BC was carbon dated.
Somewhere between scholarly historical conjecture and legend is the theory that cheese-making began by accident, thanks to nomadic shepherds who happened to carry their milk in a bag made from the stomach of a goat or sheep.
As they carried it with them, the milk would react, for example, to the stomach lining, which has the rennet in it, and cause the curd to separate from the whey. And what they're left with are those little curds. And if you pack that together, that's cheese. And very little has changed in that 5, 6, 7, 8,000 years. It's spread because it is food. It's a very durable food.
An ounce of cheese contains 7 times the protein of an ounce of milk. And 5 times the calcium. Cheese also...
This is why I'm not dead. Because I don't drink milk. I eat stuff that has milk involved in it. Like, I'll eat cereal. But also, cereal doesn't fill me up. But, like, and I'll eat I'll drink chocolate milk. But I don't drink regular milk. Like, I don't like the taste of just pure milk. But I do like cheese.
delivers a concentrated wallop of fat calories. 40 to 50% of its non-water weight is
Cheese
fat.
and potatoes is keeping me alive.
Ancient cheeses were made predominantly from the milk of that hardy travel companion, the goat.
They've been herded for over 7,000
Gross.
years, and we're one of the first
The milk, not
animals
the
to
goats.
be domesticated. So I believe that probably means that goat cheese was
This one, the round one, looks like what I ate.
some of the first cheese made in the world.
In Homer's Odyssey, the founding epic of Western civilization, Odysseus' great foe, the Cyclops, is in fact a cheesemaker. He curdles his goats' and sheep's milk into curd, drains the cheeses in tightly woven baskets, and even cave ages them. Handcrafted goat cheeses continue to thrive, not only in Greece and across the Mediterranean region, but also at the Redwood Hill Farm in Northern California.
Today we're making feta in our traditional vat here. We have 1,000 gallons of milk that we started with this morning. We've added the beneficial cultures. Then we added the rennet. And you can see now that it's not really milk any longer. It's a coagulated mass that's like a giant piece of tofu or jello.
Yeah, all right.
The cheesemakers cut the curd into relatively large cubes and separate it from the whey.
They're like shovels.
Right now we're putting the curd into the molds, and you can see we're packing it in so it will continue to knit together and become one piece of cheese. With feta, we don't add any pressure. It's just the pressure of the curds and the knitting together. They'll get turned at the end of today and drain on the other side overnight, and then tomorrow morning they'll be put in a sea salt brine.
Cheese's value as a lightweight, long-lasting survival food increased as ancient Mediterranean cultures, particularly the Romans, perfected the art of making large wheels of salty, hard cheese that would last indefinitely and were easy to transport.
There were a lot of Roman centurions and soldiers that had to be fed, and cheese was an integral part of their diet. So the Romans, wherever they went, they took herds of cows or goats or sheep or stole whatever ones were there when they got there, and they would milk them and make cheese. The most predominant Roman cheese has always been and is now a very hard and dry and oily sheep's cheese that we call Romano Pecorino, meaning a cheese made of sheep's milk from the Rome area.
Other great Italian hard cheeses like Grana Padano and Parmigiano Reggiano have been made continuously for 1,000 years,
Yeah,
and
right.
probably longer. The Romans weren't the only ones to make giant wheels of firm, aged cheese. As early as the 11th century, high in the Swiss Alps, cowherds passed the summer in isolation, grazing their cattle on sweet mountain herbs and producing large blocks of hard cheeses, like Gruyere, which were essential to get through the long, harsh winter. The Swiss have produced Gruyere continuously for at least 1,000 years.
I don't know if I've
Their
ever had
greatest
that.
innovation, though, was full of holes.
Swiss
So why
cheese.
are there holes in Swiss cheese? And how did some hard-drinking medieval monks create some of the world's
How did some
best
alcoholics
and
do that?
stinkiest cheeses?
Ew.
Step inside a world
I will say I don't understand like cheese culture, and when I mean that, I mean like the wine and cheese, like frou-frou shit. Like I don't get that. I'm just like, hey, I like cheese. I like a sharp cheddar, white cheddar. I don't like yellow cheddar. I tried goat cheese. Yeah. You know, like I'll try some cheese, specifically white colored cheeses. I don't know what I have against like yellow cheeses, but I think it's in my brain that it's like again, nacho cheese can be yellow. But if you give me like a slice of cheese, I don't want it to be yellow. I have no idea why I'm like that. If you melt the slice of cheese, fine. If it's non-melted and you just hand it to me, I don't want it. I don't know why. It's really weird now that I'm thinking about it. And I think a lot of it I don't like combining foods, but it's 100% like they added this color to it, and I don't like certain additives, which is weird because like everything has additive color to it. Why am I like this? Like I don't understand. It's so weird. Like what the fuck? But I didn't used to like cheddar cheese because it was yellow. And then I found white cheddar cheese. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. That doesn't make any sense. What? Well, it's like cow, goat, and sheep. But because we use cows for a bunch of things, generally we are more likely to use cow because we also eat beef. We don't usually eat goat meat or sheep meat. Like we can, but we on a lesser scale do it. So cows are cheaper. It might be. I don't know. It's so fucking weird now that I'm thinking about it. Like what the fuck? What beef do I have with solid yellow cheese that I do not have with liquid yellow cheese? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
class cheese store. And you also enter a living, breathing historical record. A pungent library of the world's great cheeses.
Pungent.
In all their
Cool.
glorious eccentricity. Whether it's in California's celebrity-friendly cheese store of Beverly Hills.
You let me know how making cheese out of bear milk goes. You let me know how getting the milk from the bear goes.
We did it at Poisse from Burgundy.
Or the bustling Fairway Market, 3,000 miles away in New York City.
I'm asking if this St. Andre is right.
I don't put it out if it's not right.
Yeah?
Cheesemongers Steve Jenkins and Norbert Wobnig have been introducing Americans to Europe's cheese traditions for over 30 years.
Man,
What else today?
make your passion your
Boring
job.
piece of brie.
You can almost grade any good cheese store by the smell when you walk in the door. If it doesn't have a really pungent odor, you're not in the right place.
You make me not want to ever go through your doors if you're going to call it pungent. Like, and I'm sure there are definitely some stinky cheeses, and I'm sure it's like, hey, this place has stinky cheeses, and so this place probably is kind of a little stinky. I don't want to go in there then. I will stick with, like, I hate to say it, I'll stick with fucking Publix or like just a regular grocery store or Aldi, or like there was a when I was in Florida there was a crap, what is it called? There was like a local store that did who are the people that still use horse and buggies? You know what I'm talking about? What are they called? My brain has stopped. Amish. Yeah, so there's a store that was like a very large store that like, it was the Amish. That like the Amish sold a bunch of their stuff to. And so you got like fresh cheese, like Amish cheese and like that kind of stuff. And that was kind of neat. It was like a big farmer's market kind of thing. But then they also had like regular stuff in there too. So it was kind of like, think about going to like a big Korean market or Asian market where it's like, yeah, you have all this Asian specific stuff, but then you also have like Coca-Cola on the counter because like it's more catering to like the Asian population here, but it's like your one-stop shop kind of place. And it was kind of like that. But that was down in like freaking Florida. I don't live anywhere near that, so I will just go to Publix, I guess.
Cheese becomes stinky thanks to the work of bacteria and molds, which break down fats and proteins into volatile compounds that pack a powerful odor. The stinkiest cheeses were created by medieval Trappist and Benedictine monks, who brought great creativity to the final stage of cheese making, ripening.
These are stinky cheeses because they're washed rind cheeses.
I don't know
These
what that means.
guys learned that if they would rub the surface of the cheese, and mostly these were cow's milk cheeses, be it water or brine or wine or beer or brandy or grape juice, that would feed the natural bacteria that were on the outside of that cheese, naturally, from the air and from the milk inside.
The monks acted as a bridge from the ancient world into the medieval world. And they kept alive this making of cheese, and they turned it really into an art. Mm-hmm. This is a traditional Trappist cheese, made literally by the Trappist monks. It's called Monastic. This is about as close to the original recipe as there is. And what the monks would probably eat with this are some dried meats, a lot of ale, and a couple of
some
prayers.
bread.
Trappist and other monastic cheeses, which date from as early as the 6th century, are the ultimate guy's food.
Guys.
A meal designed to go with really strong beer.
Do you know what Ray said to me the other day? He told me that I eat like a bachelor or like a man. To be fair, though, what he was talking about is when I make mashed potatoes on the stove, right? Like because I use like flake mashed potatoes, like instant, right? When I make it on the stove in my little pot, right? I don't then scoop it out of that pot and put it in a bowl because now I have doubled the amount of dishes I have to do. If I'm making them for myself, I will just eat it out of the fucking pot. If I make myself Campbell's chicken and stars soup, I'm just going to eat it out of the pot that I cook it in. I'm not going to put it in another thing. And he was like, that is... It was like, that is... very manly of you. I was like, listen, I don't want to give myself more work later, okay? I might as well just, it drives my mom insane, by the way. I've explained this to my mom before. I don't know why we were having this conversation, but I did explain it to my mom before. Like, no, I just eat out of the pot. Why would I put it in a bowl and increase the amount of dishes I have to do? And she got so upset at me. And I was like, who's looking at me eating? I'm eating by myself. Who cares? Like, I'm cooking for me and I'm eating by myself. Who cares if I'm eating out of the pot? Oh my God. Like, I don't, if I'm frying something, like, I don't eat out of my skillet. Like, if I make a burger, I'm not using the skillet as my plate because it's like a burger, right? But if it's something like a soup or like mashed potatoes or like if I make butter noodles or something, I will just eat it out of the pot. Like, it's not a big deal. That's not just a guy thing. It's just a depression thing. It's not even for, I could not be depressed. I don't want to, why would I put it in a bowl if I'm not entertaining, like no one else is in my house, I'm eating by myself. Like, why would I increase the amount of dishes? Like, who am I trying to impress here? Like, you know, just eat out of the fucking pot. That's less dishes you have to deal with. Like, what the fuck? Why give yourself more fucking work to do later? Like, I don't understand. Like, I legitimately do not understand. Like, why can't I just eat it out of the pot? Yeah, like chicken noodle soup, mashed potatoes, like, I'm trying to think of anything else I do it. Like hominy. If I make hominy, I'll just eat out of the pot. And what? Oh, I have some left over? Great. I will pour it directly from the pot into like my little storage thing that I then put in the fridge. Like whatever. So I will say I don't put the pot or the bowl I eat out of in the fridge. I have like Tupperware, like I have containers that I will pour. So like, oh, I didn't eat all of my soup, but I might eat it later. Let me put it in a container and seal it and put it in the fridge. Like I do that. Like I don't like saran wrap shit. Like I have stuff, but like, that is not like wearing the same clothes every day. I wash the pots. Like, so I cook, like say I cook hominy, right? And I eat out of the pot and I have some left over. So I put it in a container and I put it in my fridge. That hominy is cooked. All I have to do to recook it is microwave the damn thing. Okay. That's it. That's all I got to do. The pot that I cooked it on and originally ate it out of, I then wash. Like, I'm not reusing it without washing it. Like, what are you talking about? Also, when I make pot roast, so I make pot roast in like a big pot, right? And then I serve myself pot roast in a bowl, okay? But then when I'm done for the day, like, okay, it's like, okay, I ate all that I want today. I need to put the rest of this in the fridge. I put it in a big Tupperware. I put it in the fridge. So I put it in Tupperware, put it in the fridge. And then when I want to eat more, like, because it's leftovers, I take it out of the fridge. I put it in a small pan, like what you would make a little thing of soup out of. I put it in there, and that's how I reheat it. I reheat it on my stove in the small pan. And then I just eat it out of the pan, because why the fuck not? I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm just trying to eat and have less dishes. I'm just saying. It makes perfect sense. Anyway.
Fresh cheese wouldn't have made it. Wouldn't have been so good with those beers. A rock hard, dry, chalky cheese wouldn't be as good with those beers. They came up with a recipe where cheese was
Bash, I disagree.
Stinky and gooshy and excruciatingly delicious in order for it to stand up to the black bread and the really strong beers and the other stuff that they ate that was so lusty in those days.
So lusty. All right.
Another legacy of the Trappist recipe is the famously odoriferous Limburger cheese.
Odoriferous.
At the Chalet Cheese Co-op in Monroe, Wisconsin, master cheesemaker
Okay, y'all are gonna hate me for this. I kind of wear my pajamas all the time. Like, I wash them, but like, I don't understand. Okay, so there's like, you have pajamas, you have loungewear, and then you have going out wear, right? I just take the loungewear out of the equation. I have pajamas and I have going out clothes. I've got plenty of pajamas. Why wouldn't I just wear my pajamas around my house if no one's over? It's peak comfortable. Why do I have to change multiple times? I wash my clothes. I'm not stinky. I get showers a lot. I take a lot of showers. I take like 2 showers a day. Like, just saying.
Byron Olson makes Limburger in the same handcrafted manner that the company has used for over a century.
Some of it might be
Once the
depression.
fruit is formed, it's hand salted.
Oh, look at all that
Then sent
salt.
off to the ripening cellar, where it gets its trademark bacterial smear.
No, I don't like
What we're
that.
doing is putting a bacteria water onto the surface of the cheese. It's a mixture of water, salt, and a special bacterial liniment.
Okay.
And then he's rolling them and smearing each side, each end of the cheese. The bacteria will start to grow, breaks down the protein of the cheese, causes it to go from a very acidy, crumbly type of cheese to where it becomes soft. It softens on the outside of the cheese and works its way in.
I don't know if I want like runny cheese.
Limburger is not necessarily the smelliest of washed rind cheeses. Perhaps it's the type of smell that people remember. Limburger's Brevibacterium linens is the same bacteria that's partially responsible for human body odor.
I don't know if
Calorie
I like
cheese
that.
has been propagating this same bacterial culture on the pine boards of its curing cellars since the early 1900s. Today, Chalet Cheese is the only company making Limburger in the United States. But in the early 20th century, Limburger was hugely popular.
I've heard figures that at one point there was up to 10 million pounds of Limburger consumed in a year. We currently make 1 million pounds, and that's enough to keep everybody in the U.S. happy.
If you think a bacterial smear is an unsavory way to ripen a cheese, you might want to stay away from mimolette,
You
which
got
is
it.
a rind that's seasoned by the dander and excrement of burrowing mites.
God damn it.
This is mimolette. This was Charles de Gaulle's favorite cheese. And when we turn it over, they allow the mites to eat into the rind. Again, this is tradition and may in fact have some effect on the flavor. The cheese, oddly enough, is quite mild and is somewhere between a cheddar and an Edam.
A
No,
much more
thank you.
commonly used organism for ripening cheese is mold.
Yeah, fucking blue
The white
cheese.
rind on the great soft ripened cheeses like Brie and Camembert, all mold. But go ahead and take a bite. The mold on cheese is cultivated carefully. Nothing like the type growing in a musty basement.
The French have been around a long time and they've eaten a lot of mold in their day.
In the same family as Brie, these bloomy rind goat cheeses known as Crottin and Camellia are maturing at the Redwood Hill farm.
Maybe I did want to learn about cheese.
Early in the process, cheesemaker Jennifer Bice added a Penicillium candidum mold to the milk.
A what?
During the ripening stage, that mold migrates to the surface of the cheese, since it needs air to live. The cheeses are turned so that gravity will evenly distribute the butterfat.
This is the aging room where the camellia are aging. And you can see now that we have Penicillium candidum mold growth. The mold grows on the cheese, and then the mold actually composts the cheese from the outside in. And that's why in Camembert and Brie, we have it runny around the edge, and it works its way until the complete inner heart of the cheese is ripe and runny as well.
The most famous moldy cheeses are the blue-veined varieties,
Yeah.
like England's Stilton, Italy's Gorgonzola, and especially France's Roquefort. The legendary sheep's milk blue, aged in the Roquefort caves and spiked with mold taken from locally grown rye.
Roquefort is a particular blue made in the Auvergne region of France. It's pure sheep's milk, and it has to be aged in the caves at Roquefort. At a certain point, the cheese is spiked. Spikes are pulled out, air gets in, and the blue begins to blossom. It's a particular blue mold called Penicillium roqueforti. Roquefort is totally unique. It tastes like no other blue cheese.
Another unique cheese icon simply goes by the name Swiss in North America, but its Swiss creators call it something else.
This is Emmentaler. Emmentaler is made in Switzerland, in the town of Emmental. The Swiss make one, and there's also one made on the other side of the border in France. But the real one is this one. It is about 200 pounds when it's made.
It's killing you, isn't it? Okay, so where do the holes come from?
What we do back when we're first making Swiss cheese, we add a special bacteria to it. It's called the propionic bacteria.
The propionic bacteria, which occur naturally in the milk, thrive in the unusually warm aging rooms.
A warm room is held at between 70 and 80
So it's like
degrees.
gas?
And as it warms the cheese, this propionic bacteria will start to grow. And they'll form little colonies. These colonies will start producing carbon dioxide.
Yep.
And this carbon dioxide goes out to the cheese, starts pushing like a balloon. And the longer it's left in this warm condition and the more the colonies grow, the bigger the eyes get. This bacteria also imparts a flavor to the cheese that becomes part of what we consider a Swiss flavor.
Flavor, after all, is what cheese is all about.
Yeah.
And for millions of cheese lovers, it doesn't get any better than this.
Velveeta is not real cheese. As someone who makes mac and cheese using Velveeta, Velveeta is not real cheese.
Welcome to the world of processed cheese. Processed cheese
Cheese
can be many
whiz!
things, from uniformly square slices to creamy sauces. But essentially, it's cheese that's been melted down,
I don't like that one's like
homogenized
lumpy.
with the help of non-cheese ingredients, and reformed. The end product has longer shelf life than natural cheese, melts more evenly, and can be produced more cheaply. This process can be seen at Winona Foods in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which makes a number of processed cheese products,
Cheese whiz!
including a squeeze-bottled cheese sauce and its Painted Cow brand of cheese in a can. Processed cheese begins with natural cheese.
Okay, but like cheese in a can that you squirt on Ritz crackers?
In most cases, cheddar or Colby. Here at Winona, 40-pound blocks of white cheddar are shredded. The aim is to create as much surface area as possible for the chemical transformations that will take place in the blender.
This blender is 6,000 pounds, therefore it will produce approximately 12,000 cans of finished product today. We add cheddar cheese to the blender. We also add emulsifiers, whey powder, fat, and water to blend it into the slurry mix to make a homogeneous.
Oh yeah, the one where you like you put the cheese whiz under the cracker and you feed it in through the hole so that it like goes around in a circle. Yeah. I like cheese whiz on crackers. I just like I'm trying to like eat healthier, quote unquote, so I haven't bought any canned cheese.
Yes, blend or processed cheese base.
The key ingredients in any processed cheese are the emulsifiers, food additives that disperse fats and prevent their separation from proteins, even when melted. This will give processed cheese its smooth texture.
What I'm holding here is emulsifying salt that's typically used in processed cheese manufacture. It can be trisodium phosphate, trisodium citrate, disodium phosphate, disodium citrate. It's added at the beginning of the process, and what that does is it breaks the fat globules down into smaller little fat globules that will end up being dispersed throughout the cheese matrix.
The ingredients are simultaneously melted down and agitated, the other crucial steps in reconstituting the cheese matrix.
And it makes almost a plastic homogeneous mass in the cooker, and it's very, very hot at that point.
From now on, the processed cheese will remain smooth and homogeneous. And whether it's a processed cheese spread or a slice, it will have supreme meltability. The first processed cheese was introduced in 1915 by the man who would go on to impact the history of cheese
Kraft.
more than any other individual, James L. Kraft. Kraft's cheese career began in Chicago in 1903 when he invested $65 in a horse and cart and began peddling cheese to local grocers. But Kraft wasn't satisfied with the available product.
There was not a lot of consistency in terms of flavor and the quality of the cheese that was being produced at that time. And there was also a problem with the short shelf life of cheese.
In 1911, Kraft began experimenting with a heat-sterilized cheese that could be sold in a can.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the heating caused the fats and proteins to separate. Eventually, Kraft discovered that constant stirring and the use of emulsifiers solved the problem. Kraft soon landed a contract to supply the U.S. Army with 6 million pounds of the non-perishable cheese during the First World War.
And this was a significant contract that really helped J.L. Kraft develop the business.
The business quickly became an empire. By 1923, J.L. Kraft was running the largest cheese company in the world.
Good for you.
Then in 1928, Kraft introduced the soft, golden processed cheese loaf with the mellifluous name
Velveeta.
What was unique about Velveeta was the fact that the whey byproduct was put back into the cheese while it was being made. And what the scientists found out was that it produced a cheese with an unusual creamy texture, and an additional benefit was the nutritional benefits that Velveeta offered.
Incredibly, by 1930, 40% of all cheese eaten in America was made by Kraft. Kraft engineers also introduced all the major technologies used to make processed cheese, including the continuous screw-driven cooker still used today. As if that weren't enough, a Kraft scientist also revolutionized the surprisingly high-tech art of making cream cheese.
In the 1940s, Oscar J. Link invented the centrifugal separation process for cream cheese, which allowed us to separate the whey from the cream cheese in 15 seconds versus the hours it had previously taken. He also invented a unique heating process, which allowed us to extend the shelf life of the product to 120 days.
Cream cheese is a natural, not processed cheese. But making a perfectly creamy schmear is far from simple. And it's done without the use of cream. The key is using bacteria to carefully
Cream cheese is just
manipulate the
cream?
electric charges
No.
present in the milk.
Cream cheese is just cheese?
Those
That one.
charges normally in milk are all negative charges, or enough of them are negative charges. And so like charges repel. They don't like to come close to each other, and they repel each other. That keeps them stable, and that's why milk stays on liquid and not a gel until the bacteria come along and produce some acid. That changes some of these charge groups on the protein to positive charges, and now they start to get attractive and start to stick together.
When the charges are balanced, the mixture congeals into a perfectly creamy state. Not runny, not stiff. At that point, it's quickly heated, killing the bacteria and creating cream cheese. In 1940, Norman Kraft, James's younger brother, designed the unique chill roll system to make a product he'd envisioned for years: pre-sliced cheese.
The heated processed cheese would flow onto a large refrigerated cylinder, what was called a chill roll. And so it would create a sheet of processed cheese that was very quickly chilled. And that sheet was then cut into ribbons. And then the long ribbons were cut crosswise into sandwich-shaped squares that were then
Singles.
stacked in stacks of 8 slices usually, and then wrapped and packaged in that way. And it sounds simple, but it was really quite innovative at the time.
The design breakthrough is still the method for making processed cheese slices. When the product was finally
Explain to me
unveiled in 1950,
what American cheese is.
it became a sensation, and then a staple. Its familiar blend of cheddar with dairy and non-dairy ingredients even became known as
Thank you. Thank you for immediately answering my question.
American cheese.
Aye.
Today, individual cheese slices are still a hefty slice of Kraft's business.
On an annual basis, Kraft produces about 7.2 billion American slices a year. And, you know, my rough calculations would have that stretching end-to-end stretch around the earth about 14 times.
Kraft's Cheese Whiz, for dozens of cheese dishes and snacks fast. It's a brand new idea in food, entirely different from anything you've ever had before.
In 1952, Kraft introduced Cheese Whiz, a high-moisture processed cheese spread made with additional stabilizers.
This tantalizing pasteurized processed cheese spread is grand in any sandwich.
Cheese Whiz is primarily, here in the States, used as a topping cheese, as a sauce for vegetables, potatoes. Broccoli and potatoes are really the way that it's used.
Over the years, processed cheese has taken some hits to its image. Critics argue that it's greatly limited the American palate, while putting the squeeze on natural cheesemakers. But it continues to thrive.
Because it's convenient.
It's even earned the admiration of at least one
And cheap.
world-renowned cheese connoisseur.
I mean, I grew up on Velveeta. I love Velveeta. I mean, a Dr. Pepper and a peanut butter sandwich and a big slab of Velveeta and some comic books, and I'm a happy boy.
To countless millions of people, happiness is a hot pizza or a cool caprese salad. The secret to happiness? It's the cheese.
Mozzarella.
Just ask her. Quick, what's the most popular cheese in the United States? Cheddar? American?
Mozzarella.
Guess again.
Are we talking about mozzarella?
That's right. Thanks almost entirely to our undying love of pizza, the once obscure Italian cheese known as mozzarella has stretched its way to the top.
Hell yeah.
It's hardly surprising when you consider that Americans eat about 100 acres of pizza per day. Over a year, that's enough to cover every square inch of Manhattan with pizza. Twice. And so back at Wisconsin's Alto Dairy, they make pizzeria-grade cow's milk mozzarella around the clock.
We make approximately 250,000 pounds of mozzarella per day. On an annual basis, that comes to 96 million pounds in a year's time.
Jeez.
And to put it on pizza terms, we produce enough mozzarella per day to cover 500,000 pizzas.
Mozzarella is known as a pasta filata, or stretched curd cheese.
I don't know what that means.
A machine called a cooker stretcher heats the curd to 136 degrees, melting it.
Okay.
Constant mechanical pulling turns the melted curd into a stretchy mass.
When it leaves the mixer and cookers, it's got this massive stringy texture to it. And that's what people like to see.
The hot curd is molded into blocks. To preserve mozzarella's soft, springy texture, the blocks are gently coaxed into a cool, salty canal.
Why is it green? Why is it green?
The 4-hour brine bath halts the cooking and fermentation. Once cooled, the blocks of mozzarella are packaged and aged for about a week. Much of the cheese then takes a run through the shredder and into a vacuum-sealed 5-pound bag. The next
Quiero hayate. Hello. Hello, readers. We're learning about cheese. We're watching Modern Marvels about cheese. Hi.
stop
Thanks for the
is a
raid.
500-degree oven at your local pizzeria. To create a slightly browned, perfectly stretchy mozzarella, the cheesemakers not only have to melt and stretch the curd just so, they must also guide the starter bacteria into breaking down the tightly bound milk proteins, called caseins, as well as calcium.
Because calcium is the glue that holds...
Where are they that they are wrapping their pizza things in aluminum foil? What? Hello.
the casein structure together in cheese. If you don't remove some of that glue with acid during the make procedure, the fermentation, the proteins are held tightly and they can't stretch and flow. If you remove all of it, then it just falls apart. Here's how we would quantify it. We'd put a ruler by it like this. We'd grab some cheese.
By it, that's in it,
And we'll
my
see
dude.
how high it goes up before the last strand breaks, which is right there, which was 13 inches. Try it one more time.
Now I want pizza. Every time I watch these, I just get hungry. Because I keep watching food ones.
More, 16 inches. So we take a number of readings, average them, and that would give us our empirical reading for this particular pizza bake. This is pretty close to what many people would consider an almost perfect pizza. But the only way to really tell that is to get the human involved to taste it. So
I'm going to eat this. You eat that, man.
it's good. Pizza's on, so dig in.
Despite the runaway popularity of pizza, the essence of this remarkable cheese remains: fresh mozzarella di bufala.
Yeah, I don't like that kind.
Say hello to the Asian water buffalo.
Hello.
This gentle giant, not the cow, is the original source of authentic fresh mozzarella. Ever since the Goths brought water buffalo to the Naples region in the early medieval era, Italian cheesemakers have been making mozzarella di bufala.
We do not even know exactly when the tradition started, but we can say that at least 1,000 years ago, we have traces that water buffalo mozzarella existed already in the form that it exists right now.
Water buffalo milk is prized for its sweet, rich, and slightly gamey flavor. It's perfect for fresh mozzarella, which, unlike the pizza variety, is a non-aged, higher moisture, higher fat cheese, meant to be enjoyed immediately.
No,
A small
I like the
California
pizza
cheese
kinds.
company named Bubalis, after the water
Bubalis.
buffalo's scientific name, makes 600 pounds of fresh mozzarella
That's a
every
mess.
day.
I'm looking at you making a mess on the floor.
About what the Alto Dairy produces
What?
in 4 minutes.
Why? This doesn't matter, but like I'm bothered by it.
Once the curd enters the cooker stretcher, the instincts and timing of the cheesemaker are everything.
He adds about 200-degree hot water to it so that the curd will again become soft and stretchable, and then he'll add salt to it. He will stretch it to the point where he feels that it is good to form it into individual balls.
The automated arms of the cooker stretcher are modeled on human hands, the traditional tools for stretching and tearing fresh mozzarella.
And this is the precise moment when you cut the mozzarella. And this is why mozzarella is called mozzarella, because you mozzi, meaning you cut. Because mozzare means to cut in Italian. So that's the reason they call it like that.
Both handmade and automated methods finish in the same way.
They drop into ice water. The ice water basically, by the shock of it, because the curd is pretty hot still coming from the cheese mass, it will develop a skin on the outside, which is kind of typical for the mozzarella di bufala. Today we got a nice skin on the outside.
Bubalis also makes its own buffalo milk ricotta.
I like the
Ricotta is
pizza
unique among
kind.
cheeses in that it's made entirely from the discarded whey, rather than the curds.
This whey, of course, which is left over after we make the curd, it still contains a very large amount, of course, of protein. This whey we then put into a separate tank, a ricotta tank, where we heat it up to 198 degrees. And at that point, we add some salt and some citric acid to it. The
Y'all are
protein,
messy.
which is in that whey still will coagulate one more time.
Like what?
So
Like
that
okay, it's fine.
coagulant
It's fine. It's
is
fine. It's
basically
fine.
ricotta cheese.
While ricotta has been made out of whey for centuries, the booming whey industry is just getting started as cheese forges ahead into a new health-conscious millennium. For centuries, whey has been treated mostly as a waste product, once drained from the valuable cheese curd. Considering that 90% of the milk used in cheese making will end up as whey, that's a lot of waste. After all, it was
we
good
just
enough for a
spill
Little
on
Miss
the
Muffin.
floor.
Today, that whey finds new life, thanks to operations like the one at the Alto Dairy, which uses a 6-story high dryer to create whey powder at the rate of 250,000.
Oh my God. That makes so much sense. That's what they put in protein. This protein powder. As whey protein powder. Yo.
Pounds per day.
Yo.
This Filtermat is one of the largest Filtermat dryers in the world, and it will dry approximately 12,000 pounds of powder per hour. We're essentially spraying thick whey product that's approximately half water, half solids. We're spraying it in a stream of very hot air, approximately 400 degrees, and as that product is falling through the air, the moisture in it is evaporating off and it is converting it into a powder.
Whey powder consists of about 12% protein, the rest being mostly milk sugars and minerals, such as calcium and magnesium. This former waste stream will become blended into countless prepared foods, from bread to sausages. Among its many uses, whey can act as a sweetener or a thickening agent, while providing essential protein and minerals. Whey proteins can be further concentrated into whey protein isolates, the ingredient of choice in fitness products. Whey isn't the only food getting a healthy makeover. Nutritional aspects of cheese itself are also expanding. There's no getting around the fact that cheese contains a lot of fat.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of the beast. But scientists at the Wisconsin Center for Dairy Research are working with dairy farmers and cheesemakers to squeeze more nutrition from that fat by boosting cheese's levels of omega-3 fatty acids, the healthy fat.
You can get it in 2 different methods. You can get it through a feeding regimen of feeding dairy cattle, a diet high in flaxseed, and what you get is an elevated level of ALA, omega-3 fatty acid. The other way to incorporate it is something seed generated, either through fish or algae extracts.
Scientists have even figured out how to isolate and remove any trace of a fishy smell. There's also increased interest in making cheese with beneficial probiotic cultures, like those found in yogurt.
Again, I just want to eat this part. Look at it. Look at it.
But in the United States,
Crumbly.
it's just starting to take hold right now.
Cheese,
Like the crumbly
with its
looking
longer
one.
shelf life, is proving to be a good storage system for these healthy bacteria. Science and technology notwithstanding, cheese will always be shaped by the creativity of the individual cheesemaker. Cheese will also continue to be shaped by the land and the animals from which it came.
I find it amazing that the animal can take on all the bacteria in the air and all the yeast in the air and the esters from the wildflowers that it eats and the esters from the wild garlics and wild leeks, translate it through the mammolactation and into the milk and into the fat and into the cheese so that we can recognize them in terms of finish flavor and what give cheese its complexity and its character. I think that's really interesting. It's magic.
It's been around a long time. There's a reason for that. It's good food. God made man, man made cheese.
And billions of blissful cheese lovers couldn't be happier.
Yay! Cheese.